Hey, Sip and Talkers. Good morning, afternoon, or not, whatever time zone you're tuning in from. Welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Joe.
I'm Sunny.
And if you've been anywhere near TikTok or X in the last couple of days, you have definitely been hit by the exact same wall of chaotic videos.
Oh, yeah. It's just completely flooding everyone's feeds right now.
Right. It's just these massive, incredibly angry crowds outside of polling stations in Seoul. And then you see these huge battalions of masked riot police physically pushing through the lines.
Yeah, and the internet is going crazy with it.
Exactly. And the wildest rumor tearing across social media right now is that those masked officers are actually Chinese armed police, or maybe naturalized citizens secretly sent in to violently suppress Korean voters. It sounds like the script for a Hollywood political thriller, right?
It really does. It's an incredibly intense situation, and it's super easy to see why those videos get people's heart rates up.
Oh, for sure.
But, as rational observers of tech and global politics, this is the exact moment we need to just let the bullets fly for a second. We have to stay completely objective here.
Yes, calm the waters a bit.
Right. We cannot jump to these massive conclusions about, a nation's sovereignty being infiltrated based on a few blurry smartphone photos and some very loud videos.
Totally agree. Let's let the dust settle. So today on Sip and Talk, here's how we're going to break this down. Since everyone is so incredibly anxious about geopolitics right now, our first part is going to look at the macro environment.
Yeah, the big picture.
Exactly. We're going to look at the latest global financial and geopolitical trends. Because once you understand that massive layer of global stress, you'll actually understand why people in South Korea are so on edge.
That is exactly the right place to start.
And then, in part two, we're going to dive straight into the actual facts of the last 72 hours in South Korea. The incident the internet is calling the Help Korea movement.
We'll look at the Jeju Island clash, the bizarre ballot shortage in Seoul, and just debunk those masked police rumors with cold, hard facts. No bias, just the data.
Love it. So let's get into it. Looking at the financial pressure cooker we are all sitting in right now, the paranoia makes a lot more sense when you look at the markets.
Oh, the macro environment right now is completely unforgiving. Look at the absolute market bloodbath we had on June 5th, 2026.
It was brutal.
It really was. It was this massive systemic correction. The S&P 500 dropped 2.6%. The SOX semiconductor index plummeted by 10%.
Wow, 10% in one day.
Yeah, and the Nasdaq Q100 fell 4.8%. To put that in context, that is the worst single-day drop for the Nasdaq Q since the Liberation Day sell-off back in April 2025.
And it wasn't just, the volatile tech stocks taking a hit either.
Yeah.
Even the safe havens were bleeding out.
Right.
Gold dropped 3.5%. Bitcoin fell completely below the $60,000 mark. It just looked like a total panic liquidation event.
Yeah. It was a massive flight to cash. And you really have to ask why that panic happened so suddenly.
Right. What triggered it?
It basically comes down to a really harsh economic reality check. The May jobs report came in incredibly hot, showing 172,000 new jobs.
But wait, wasn't a lot of that skewed by temporary hiring for the World Cup?
Yes, exactly. But the market algorithms, they do not care about that kind of nuance. They just react to a hot labor market. And you combine that with the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which is expected to break 4% again.
Ugh, inflation. It's like the ultimate financial bait and switch.
How do you mean?
Well, it's like expecting a massive discount at your favorite store, which for Wall Street means expecting an interest rate cut. But then you get to the register and they slap you with a massive surcharge instead.
That is a great analogy.
Right. And that surcharge is the realization of a 2026 interest rate hike. Borrowing money stays expensive and consumer confidence just absolutely tanks.
And that mechanic is exactly what is squeezing the life out of the tech sector right now, especially in AI. We are seeing a severe liquidity crunch.
Oh, yeah. Broadcom dropped, 20%?
Yeah, a historic 20% drop over 2 days. And giant players like Meta and Alphabet are drastically shifting strategies. They are moving to massive equity financing to pay for physical AI infrastructure.
Data centers, power grids, all that stuff.
Exactly. And while they are scrambling for cash, you have the SpaceX IPO acting like a giant vacuum cleaner on the entire market.
Oh man, the SpaceX IPO. People are literally selling off their other tech stocks just to free up cash to buy into SpaceX, right?
Exactly. It's sucking up all the market liquidity, so the financial foundation is completely exhausted.
Okay, so you have this financially drained, highly anxious global market. But the geopolitical layer is what really turns the heat up to boiling. What's happening globally that's feeding this panic?
Well, you have multiple flashpoints intersecting. The Iran conflict is threatening the Strait of Hormuz, which is massively impacting supply chains for everyday things like medical gloves and apparel.
So even basic logistics are seen as a massive risk now.
Right. Plus, there is this aggressive push for de-dollarization. China is trading oil in yuan, challenging the U.S. dollar. And there's the U.S.-China space race right in our backyard.
Oh, right. U.S. companies setting up in the Dominican Republic to counter the Chinese tracking stations in Latin America.
Exactly. The tension is so thick that domestic security in the U.S. is visibly hardening. We just saw $70 billion in funding for IC and CBP to lock down the borders.
And the political shockwaves in Washington, too. Trump appointing Bill Pulte as acting D&I Director of National Intelligence.
Yeah, that sparked intense debates about national security and systemic fragility, which actually brings up a really fascinating concept from the events we're discussing today, this idea of systemic arbitrage.
Systemic arbitrage. Okay. Usually when I hear arbitrage, I think of like a Wall Street trader buying a stock cheap and instantly selling it high somewhere else. How does that work in geopolitics?
It's basically about exploiting loopholes. Systemic arbitrage happens when an authoritarian government takes advantage of the open, transparent rules of a democratic system to exert influence.
Wow. So they use the democracy against itself.
Precisely. And Asian democracies are feeling incredibly vulnerable to this right now. Take Taiwan, for example.
What's going on there?
They are having this massive debate over absentee voting and relaxing naturalization rules. To us, mailing in a ballot is completely normal. But in Taiwan, there's a deep fear that citizens living overseas could be coerced or monitored by foreign actors.
That makes total sense. And Japan is dealing with something similar, but with real estate, right?
Yeah, huge foreign land purchases in Hokkaido and Okinawa. It caused so much panic that Japan is implementing a new rule in July 2026, mandating nationality reporting for large land deals.
Okay, so this perfectly connects the dots. You take that intense regional anxiety, this deep-seated fear of foreign influence and systemic arbitrage, and you basically just drop a match on it.
And that powder keg is exactly what exploded during the South Korean local elections.
Exactly. Let's look at the actual 72-hour timeline in Seoul. Because when you strip away the internet rumors, the original spark was actually, like, comically mundane. We're talking about June 3rd. What exactly broke down?
It was a purely administrative mishap. On June 3rd, 14 different polling stations across Seoul, including Songpa-gu and Jemsil, just completely ran out of paper ballots.
Wait, a modern, hyper-digitized metropolis like Seoul just runs out of paper ballots. How does that even happen?
It was a catastrophic underestimation of voter turnout. They printed ballots based on historical averages for local elections, which are usually super low, to save money.
Oh, wow.
But turnout surged, the math was wrong, and they just ran out. Voting was forced to halt.
I would be so frustrated. You wait in line to vote, and a government worker is just like, sorry, we're out of paper. But this escalated way beyond just grumbling. It turned into a massive 35-hour standoff.
Right. Remember that powder keg of regional anxiety? Around 1,200 angry voters, conservative supporters, and live streamers completely surrounded those 14 stations.
They physically formed human chains, didn't they?
Yeah. When election workers tried to move the filled ballot boxes to the counting centers, the crowds blocked the exits. They refused to let the boxes leave, demanding a recount on the spot and screaming, "Stop the steal."
And just to pause for a second, for all of our Sip&Talkers listening, we are just providing the objective facts of what happened on the ground. We aren't taking any political sides or endorsing the Stop the Steal movement.
Absolutely. We're just mapping out what they did and why they were angry.
Right. So this standoff dragged on through the night until the morning of June 5th, right?
Yeah. By the morning of the 5th, the authorities had to intervene. Seoul Public Security Riot Police were forced to move in, physically break the human chains, and clear the blockade just to transport the ballot boxes safely.
Okay, but here is my pushback. Look at that timeline. It is a local administrative error. They ran out of paper, voters got mad, blocked the doors, and the local police came.
Right.
How does the internet take that exact sequence and suddenly decide it's a covert invasion by Chinese forces?
That is the anatomy of a misinformation campaign. You take a real, genuine anxiety and feed it with totally fabricated evidence. Let's fact-check the rumors. Rumor number 1, the viral violence suppression video.
Yeah, I've seen this everywhere. People are screaming, it looks super violent, and you can clearly hear people shouting in Mandarin. Where did this video even come from?
It came from a completely different event. On June 2nd, the day before the election, 3 Chinese tourists violently attacked some Falun Gong practitioners on Jeju Island.
Wait, Jeju Island, that's completely separate from the elections.
Exactly. The Korean police arrested the attackers there, but internet users took the audio and video of that real Jeju Island clash and seamlessly spliced it together with footage of the riot police in Seoul.
Oh my gosh. So they merged 2 entirely separate realities to create a fake foreign suppression narrative.
Precisely. Which brings us to rumor number 2, the masked police. People online are screaming that because the riot officers had their faces covered and no name tags, they must be secret foreign agents.
I mean, if you don't know how police operate, I guess it looks sinister. But what's the actual reason they cover their faces?
It is standard operating procedure. They wear tactical masks for physical protection, obviously, but more importantly, for anti-doxing purposes.
Anti-doxing. So to protect them from the internet.
Yeah. In the age of AI facial recognition, an internet mob can identify an officer in seconds and threaten their family at home. So they mask up to protect their families.
But how are they held accountable if they do something wrong and don't have a name tag?
If you look closely at the high-resolution photos, every single officer has a specific unit number and an officer number clearly printed on their helmet and shoulders. They are fully accountable, just not instantly identifiable to an online mob.
That makes total logical sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's tackle rumor number 3. Because this is the one people claim is the smoking gun.
Ah, the foreign ID badges.
Right. Viral photos showing official election badges with non-Korean names printed on them. People are holding this up as undeniable proof of foreign infiltration.
Yes, the badges are real, and yes, they have foreign names, but they do not belong to secret police. They belong to temporary poll workers.
Why would a foreign national be working at a Korean election?
Well, Seoul is a massive international hub. The Election Commission legally hires temporary workers like translators and international students to help with logistics. They direct lines, they translate for naturalized citizens, things like that.
So they're literally just hourly employees doing crowd control.
Exactly. But the paranoia got so intense that a Taiwanese reporter covering the event was actually surrounded and yelled at by the crowd just for looking Chinese.
Wow. It really shows how deeply this anxiety has clouded everyone's judgment. But, you know, the protest itself has a very specific flavor. Let's talk about the Help Korea movement.
Yeah, this is fascinating.
If you look at the signs the protesters are holding, a lot of them are in English, saying, "Help us save Korea." If this is a local dispute, why protest in English?
It is a deliberate strategy. They know domestic media sees this as a simple administrative blunder. By using English, they are trying to bypass the local press and attract international attention, especially from overseas Koreans.
Basically crowdsourcing geopolitical pressure.
Exactly, painting a logistical failure as an existential crisis.
And they were specifically demanding Taiwan-style voting methods, too. What does that actually mean?
It goes right back to the fear of systemic arbitrage. They want a purely physical, localized system, counting votes immediately on-site by hand, banning the transport of ballot boxes, and restricting absentee voting.
Basically, they don't trust the digital or logistical chain of custody anymore.
Right. They want it stripped down to its most basic analog form.
So, zooming all the way out, what is the actual reality on the ground in South Korea right now?
The reality is that South Korea is dealing with very high systemic arbitrage anxieties. There are nearly 100,000 Chinese nationals holding local voting rights, which makes people nervous.
Which is a valid demographic reality to discuss.
Yes, absolutely. However, the events of June 3rd through 5th were purely a domestic administrative failure, handled by domestic police, following domestic protocols, zero evidence of foreign intervention.
I think that is the most crucial takeaway. We can acknowledge the valid macroeconomic fears without buying into fabricated internet rumors. Which brings me to a final thought I really want to leave everyone with today.
Let's hear it.
We live in an era of such extreme tension that a simple, honest mistake by a local government, literally just miscalculating paper, can instantly look like foreign sabotage. We really have to ask ourselves, are our democratic systems actually failing, or is our collective anxiety just making us see shadows everywhere?
That is the defining question right now. When public trust hits zero, every mistake looks like a conspiracy.
Phew. We covered so much ground today, from bleeding tech markets to the streets of Seoul. And honestly, analyzing all this, It just makes me feel like living in 2026 is exhausting for our brains.
It really is.
But that is exactly why we do Sip and Talk. Analyzing these events is never about criticizing any specific nation or group of people. We just want to open up the objective facts. The ultimate goal is to help you maintain a clear, independent mind in an era overflowing with misinformation.
Because staying clear-headed is the ultimate self-defense.
Exactly. So, Sip and Talkers, what do you think? Was the Korean election mishap just a blunder or a sign of deeper systemic issues? Drop your comments below. And if you have questions on AI, philosophy, or global news, send them our way.
We love reading your thoughts. And please hit that subscribe button for the Sip and Talk podcast so you never miss out on these conversations.
Yes, definitely subscribe. And before we go, a huge shout out to our old friend Mickey. You have to go subscribe to his YouTube channel, Mickey to Life, and check out his latest travel vlogs. It is the perfect palate cleanser after heavy geopolitical talk. Thank you all for listening. Stay rational, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.